Hello, everybody.
Hey, there it goes.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Music Industry Insights Worldwide. Today we've got Jason with us. Hi, Jason. How are you?
I'm doing quite well, thank you. How are you?
I'm not too bad, thanks. And thanks for coming along today, sharing your story, your views, and your expertise with us. Do you want to tell listeners a little bit more about yourself, where you're from, what you do?
Sure. My name is Jasen Samford. I'm based in Seattle, Washington, in the US.
Cool.
I'm a dad. I'm a drummer. I worked for DistroKid for a decade. I was employee number two. For anyone that's unaware, DistroKid is the world's largest distributor of independent music. And I left there last year. Since then, I've been doing independent consulting with artists, and I started a direct-to-fan platform called Gatefolded earlier this year.
Which is great, and thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I've been to DistroKid so many times. I've been to the talks, I've been to so many panels. But tell us a little bit more about what you do. I don't know
Oh,
whether some feedback, but tell us a little bit more about what DistroKid does.
sure. Yeah. So when artists want to get their music on streaming services like Spotify or Apple Music, you can't just send your music to them directly. You have to go through a distribution service. And DistroKid is the leader there. I think latest estimates are probably something like 30 to 40% of all new music is going through DistroKid.
Mhm. And tell us a little bit what does DistroKid do, and how did you become number two employee?
Sorry, you cut out a little bit the first half of the question. What was that?
Tell us a little bit more what DistroKid does, and how did you become a number two employee for DistroKid?
Oh, yes. Okay. So what DistroKid does is they handle the sort of the plumbing, I guess, for lack of a better term. Artists upload their music to DistroKid. DistroKid sends it off to the streaming services, Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, etc. And then a few months later, payments start coming back through from the streaming services to the distributor, and the distributor passes those payments back to their users.
So,
I actually started using DistroKid myself really early on. I think the founder Philip launched it in like February or March of 2013, and by middle of that year, I was using DistroKid as an artist. Knew a bunch of people around the Seattle music scene who were as well, and a buddy of mine had reached out to Philip because he had an issue with his account. Philip wrote right back to him and fixed the issue, and he said, "Oh wow, like, what CEO gets back to you right away? That's amazing. I want to come work for you."
no, you're lucky.
And about a year later, that ended up working out for my friend Dan, and then they needed to bring on somebody else, and Dan reached out to me, and that's the story of how I became employee number two at DistroKid.
Oh, that's awesome, and I'm so glad to hear that as well. And thank you so much. We should take a commission for doing that. And how did you progress your career? Being an artist and being part of DistroKid and where you're at now.
Yeah. Well, let's see how I progressed my career. I guess at that time I was playing in multiple bands myself, and had sights set on taking over Seattle and then the world. And then DistroKid picked up and made my life really busy in other ways, and so I really focused more on the music side of things. I mean, I guess it's all music. The music business side of things. And there's just so much to learn about the distribution processes and channels and how all that works, getting music to the streaming services and payment back on the other side, and all the little things that I had never really considered. A lot of times for musicians, you have to wear so many hats. You're not only a songwriter and a performer, but you might be recording yourself. You're your own producer, engineer, mixing, mastering, your own booking agent and manager, and all these other things. So seeing how a lot of that kind of started working was really interesting to me. And then upon leaving DistroKid, kind of thinking, what do I want to do next year? It's always been that sort of customer service type passion of mine to be able to help people, and especially artists in the music scene. It's just been a real joy to be able to help people that, I've got this decade plus of experience working through some of the maybe hairier parts of distribution and of the music business side of things. So it's been great to be able to kind of help shed some light on things that are maybe not, I don't know, maybe more confusing for people who haven't been in my position.
Break it down for us, Jason, sorry. Can you just break it down? How much percentage do you take? And can you explain what distribution actually means for the listeners that might not understand that?
Sure, yeah. Well, DistroKid specifically, you mean? Like what percentage they take?
Any distributor at all, actually, what they do and how much percentages they generally take.
Sure. It varies. So the first couple independent distributors that came on the scene in the early 2000s were CD Baby and TuneCore. CD Baby charged per album that you upload, and then they also keep, I think it's 9% of royalties. Then TuneCore came on the scene and they started charging per album, per upload with 0%. And then DistroKid came on a bit after that with an unlimited annual fee for unlimited uploads and taking 0%. And I think since then it's kind of been a bit of a race to the bottom. Others like Too Lost or New, they undercut DistroKid on price and they take 0%. There's Lander and Ditto. There's a bunch of different options, and for the most part, they're all doing very similar things, which is providing that plumbing to get artists' music uploaded, distributed off to the streaming services for the end users to be able to listen to, and then passing the royalties back that way. But some distribution services take 10 to 15% or more. Kind of depends on the service and on the deal that they might work out with a specific artist. Depends on whether or not the artist can sort of sign up on their own, or if it's more gated and they have to be invited to the service. And then depending on what the service offers, you know, some of the bigger distributors will offer kind of more hands-on reps to work with you directly.
Okay, can you explain a little bit more about the membership fees as well? Do you need to be a member? Do you have to sign up? Do you have to pay a monthly fee or is it free?
You do have to sign up to pay. There are some that are free. There's one called Amuse that I think is still free, although I believe they also take a cut of your earnings. So, you know, put free in finger quotes. DistroKid, I don't know. They've raised their prices a couple times since I left. I think they're somewhere around like $30 a year for the base plan and maybe $40 for the kind of next tier up. But generally speaking, I'd say most of the distribution services are in that like $20 to $40 a year range right now.
That's cool. And can you just explain to up and coming artists what is the importance of having a distribution company working alongside you?
Sure. I mean, I think streaming services like Spotify are sort of gateways for a lot of musicians. It's a great way for people to say, hey, you don't have to live in my city to come watch me play a local show. If you live halfway across the world, you can find my music on your streaming service of choice. And the only way that that's going to happen is through a distribution service being able to get your music up onto those platforms.
I'll tell you what my problem is with that, Jason, is that artists are not getting paid money. They spend a lot of money to make music, but they're not getting paid through these streaming platforms. How can we make that better for artists, please?
Oh, I wish that I had an easy answer for that. Yeah, it's pretty shocking, especially and Spotify recently implemented a rule where unless you have 1,000 streams in a year, you don't get paid anything. And so, you know, if you sign up for a distribution service and that's say $30, $40 a year, you have to hope that you're going to get at least 1,000 streams, which is probably going to get you like $2 or $3. The To talk about like the price per stream, there's a lot of different information out there, and there isn't necessarily exactly a price per stream, but on average, it's something like 0.003 per stream. So it's fractions of a penny, and a lot of the streaming services use what's called a pro rata model, where they take all of the subscription earnings that they made, that month from people signing up for their service, and then they divide that among all of the artists that are on the platform. So, you know, there could, if you're subscribed to Tidal, and you never listen to a given artist, they could still be getting some of your money. Some of the platforms are trying out what's called an artist-centric or music-centric model, which I'm a fan of, and I'd love to see roll out more, where if I sign up and I only listen to your band for $10 a month or whatever I'm paying the streaming service, that $10 goes to you, or probably $7 after the streaming service takes their cut.
That was great.
But a little more fair that way. But unfortunately, yeah, it's the streaming models are not the best way to maybe plan on making a living,
I wouldn't say it's,
unless you get really, really big.
yeah, I would say it's a promotional platform nowadays. But how can new artists come into the industry and actually make it? If we haven't got a talent pipeline, people are not supported along the way, how are they ever going to be a global superstar in the future if they can't make it?
That, I think, is a great question. One that if we had a good answer to, there would be a lot more global superstars. So a lot of it is just putting in a lot of hard work. I think a lot of artists get to this point of, okay, I created some music at home, I recorded it, I uploaded it to my distributor, and now it's on Spotify. So that's it. Now I'll just sit back and wait for the world to make me famous. And it takes a whole lot of work. In some of the consulting work I've done, talking with music managers about the promotional side, having, speaking of all these hats, having to do your own marketing. And there was one person I spoke to who said that he asks his artists to upload 16 videos per day to various platforms, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, whatever. That idea to me of having to just like constantly be an influencer and uploading all of that sort of marketing content instead of taking that time making music is stressful for me. It's not, quite my bag. And so I think one of the big things that artists can do is really focusing more on like direct to fan connections. And you could have somebody, a bunch of people stream your music 1,000 times on Spotify so that you can make a few cents, but a few dollars maybe. But you don't know anything about those people. And the next time you have a new release, hopefully they followed you. Hopefully they're adding you to their library so that the algorithms are going to serve your music back up to them. But in reality, those people may never see you or hear from you ever again. So if you have your own website, or you're using a service where you can collect email addresses from people, one email is way more valuable than thousands of people listening to your new single and then never hearing you ever again. So being able to sort of get in directly with people through playing local shows, that's a huge one that I think more and more people are kind of saying, well, we're not really planning on making money off streaming now. That's more for discovery. People can say, oh, I heard you on Spotify, and then I wanted to come out to your show and actually buy the record or buy a t-shirt, and that's where the money's going to come from.
The problem has become very middle class and very upper class in the music industry. What can we do to support middle class and the working class people that actually have the talent in music, and support the working class people that haven't got any money? Yeah, they're literally from a background they could be struggling. They might not have any money. They might be a student. How can we support these kind of people that actually have talent into the music industry?
Absolutely. I think finding where those people are on their own platforms. By that, I mean, not just saying, oh, well, I'm going to listen to them on Apple Music, because that's not going to do too much as far as, paying their rent, but being able to see, okay, well, do they have a website? Do they have somewhere where I can actually go and pay for their music and download their music? Going through like, iTunes era, where you could pay 99 cents for a song and the artist was going to get about 70 cents from that. It's ridiculous how many streams you would need in order to make 70 cents back. But a few people buying a t-shirt or an album, finding ways to support artists directly that way is great. That's one of the reasons that I built Gatefolded is it stemmed partially from ways for artists to share music privately, if you have unreleased music that you're sending along to collaborators or producers or whatever, that's where Gatefolded started. But then it was also just an easy step into making things shareable publicly, and sort of a link in bio replacement. I think when I see somebody's link in bio on Instagram and I click on it and it shows, my music is on all these different services, to me, that's like going into a department store and saying, hey, where's the music section? And then they hand you a list to other department stores. I'm already on your page. I just want to listen to your music. Don't redirect me somewhere else. And so with Gatefolded, people can come straight in, listen to your music right on that page. There's tips set up through like PayPal or Venmo or Cash App. And being able to just shoot an artist $1 or $2 or $5 or $10, whatever it is. Bandcamp is still a great spot for a lot of artists are using Bandcamp, which has integrations for being able to sell merchandise, has a pay what you want model. So if somebody is selling their new EP for $5 or pay what you want, some people are going to say, well, I can only pay $2 right now, and that's fine. Other people are going to say, you know what, I really love this EP and I support what you're doing, so here's $20. And that's, I think, the best way that you can support your artist is find out where they're at on the internet other than just the streaming services, and find those ways that you can actually help support them more directly.
Okay, but how are we going to support underrepresented groups and groups that have no neurodivergence, for example? How are we going to support people into the industry when music is a medicine and it's also there to help people, get back on their feet? How are we going to make sure that those people are allowed to access an industry that costs cash because they haven't got it?
Yeah, I don't know that I have a great answer to that. Like anything, things cost money, and there's a privilege to be able to afford those things and get into that scene. For anybody that's not able to do so, I think any way of making funds with your art, if you can promote yourself to be able to say, hey, I'm trying to do X and I need a certain amount of money to do that. So people who, I've seen artists set up like GoFundMe and things like that in order to raise funds to record an album in hopes that the album sells well enough to let them go on tour and play shows in big rooms for real people who then want to buy that album and additional merchandise and support them that way.
People like to copy something that's unique. You've got a unique selling point. And if someone sees something different and they see a bandwagon, they like to jump on it. And everyone wants to copy it. That's the problem that I have at the moment. And if you haven't got cash, you haven't got a lawyer, you haven't got a team, then where does that leave you as an artist?
I think that is maybe an age-old question. There can be a sense of entitlement of, well, I made art and therefore I deserve attention. But I mean, I think the current stats are something like 60 to 80,000 new tracks hitting streaming services every day. There's a never-ending pool of other artists who are all doing the exact same thing, let alone now the AI stuff that's flooding. There's a French-based streaming service called Deezer, and they said at the beginning of 2025, there were 10,000 AI generated tracks coming in every day. By the end of the year, it was 50,000. And of those, they found that I think it was 85% of this AI generated music was being streamed by bots doing artificial streaming. So it's like robots creating music and robots listening to the music so that you can earn some royalties off of that. But it's really difficult to be discovered, and there's a ton of work that goes into it, and it takes years and years. It's easy to see new artists popping up and somebody having a viral TikTok moment and thinking like, oh, they just came up out of nowhere. But more likely than not, they've probably been doing the work for years.
TikTok? On TikTok?
Yeah, I mean, any sort of social media is a huge place for artists to break nowadays. I think a lot of the biggest songs of the last I don't know, 5 years maybe, kind of grew out of a viral TikTok moment.
Well, I don't use TikTok because I think TikTok is one hit wonders. I'm looking for longevity, actually. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Same. I'm with you. I don't. It's it's upsetting to me that that is the way. Or when I mentioned the manager saying that artists need to be posting so much on social media, I don't want to spend that much time on social media. If
Sure.
anybody else does, that's fine, and I'll provide on those platforms. I'll provide a place where you can find me and listen to my music. But I don't want to be making that sort of content that I would have to be. All of that is time that I would rather be using working on the art itself rather than the marketing for it. And again, I don't know that there are any short, quick, great answers on what can we all do to become much more successful.
Maybe collaborate with each other and support each other along the way. But it does take personal relationships. It's a relationship driven business, right? But at the same time,
Absolutely.
perfect. I'm not better than anyone else. I'm not flawless, what everyone says. I'm a human being and I don't do it with everyone. Like, I haven't got a team, I've got this, I've got that. I've done lots by myself. How can someone make it to the next step without being a viral hit? Because I don't believe in that. How can those people make it?
I think that depends on your definition of the next step.
Mhm.
And for some artists, that's just, well, I released a song and now I want to get signed to a label. Like, that's a giant leap. That's not really a next step.
Right.
So kind of setting some expectations, level setting for yourself to figure out what's realistic, what can I actually do. You can't just magically get yourself signed to a label, but you can commit to writing a certain number of songs per week or per month and a regular release cadence and making those relationships, going out around publicly, seeing, booking shows locally if you're able to, anything from coffee shops, house parties, house shows, to proper venues. Trying to say, I want to. My next step is going to be selling out small shows. I just want to. I'm going to play in these like 30 to 50 person venues, and the next step for me is selling out those 30 to 50 person venues. That could take months or years. It could never happen, but being able to just sort of set your sights on something and working towards that, figuring out what is it that I can do, and in doing that, like you said, with collaboration, you're meeting other bands, other performers, getting to talk to them about, hey, what's worked well for you. There's still a ton to be said about reaching out to like college radio stations. Here in Seattle, we have a really great radio station called KEXP that does a fair amount of local play, and a couple other bigger stations too that will dedicate maybe an hour a week to just local artists. So reaching out to local radio stations, seeing if you can get some play there. If you do get play, saying, hey, great, next up, could I maybe come in and do an in-studio performance or an interview? Just each of those little steps to kind of build on what you've already got going rather than shooting for the moon and just
Right.
hoping you get there.
Never shoot for the moon, and it takes time. Things do take
Yeah,
time. Build the foundations. I'm so sorry because you know what? Sometimes I am feeling a bit down today. I apologize, but when you're in the industry, it can be really heavy. There's a lot of burdens. There's a lot of different things going on, and sometimes it can be
sure.
very difficult. How do you deal with that?
Sorry, I spoke over you a bit. What was how do I deal with,
It can be quite political at times. How do you deal with that?
oh, the politics of music? Yeah, I mean, oh, these are some hard hitting questions. I don't. I think keeping informed, uh, reading up on, there's some sites like Music Ally or Music Business Worldwide, uh, things that are just sort of keeping people informed about what's going on in the music industry, um, and then deciding, do like anything, doing some research, seeing what makes sense to you. If you hear somebody says something, maybe don't just buy into it right away, but do some of that research and figure out, is what they were saying accurate, or was it kind of, there's a kernel of truth, but they missed some of the bigger point. I mean, AI right now is a huge political issue with uh, musicians and creators, and there are more and more tools making it possible for people who previously had no interest or ability to release music to suddenly be able to do so at massive scales, which is really potentially impacting smaller artists. There are a lot of boycotts, things like that going. There are some distribution services or platforms who have said, "Oh, we're 100% against it." I think Bandcamp recently came out and said, "Absolutely no AI. We'll ban it. We'll kick it off. We don't want it on the platform." Other services have kind of said, "Anybody that's making any kind of music, like that's fine. Don't partake in any sort of infringement. Don't use some other artist's name or create sound-alike music to sort of trick people. But if you're doing it responsibly, then maybe we're okay with that." And then I think just being able to align yourself with, well, how do you feel about it? And do you want to work with the platforms that feel the same way that you do? Or do you want to work with the platforms that you might disagree with?
I think I'd rather go.
Yeah.
I think that's really important as well. And I'm also looking at, who looks after artists? Where is the talent pipeline right now? Who is supporting that talent pipeline? And how are we going to bring those people forward? Because at the moment, it's very middle class, very upper class, very judgy, and very segregated. And I think we're going back to the
Yes.
old. You're over here, so you're there. You're here, so you're over there. I think that's nonsense. I don't believe in that.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think that's the internet has really sped things up in that regard. But I think that has been for every successful artist you've ever heard of, there are thousands, maybe tens of thousands of more talented artists that no one has ever heard outside of a small group of people. It's a shame, but without having some sort of angel investor come along and say, "Hey, I want every artist to have every possible opportunity, and so I'm going to throw tens of thousands of dollars at every single person." I don't know, what the best answer there is, other than just keeping at it. It's such a cheesy adage, but the if you put your mind to it, you can do anything sort of thing. I don't necessarily believe that's true. I think that's a privileged statement. But I think that there's some truth in, you're going to have to really nose to the grindstone, put in some serious work, and nothing's just going to come to you because you think you're talented. Right. Yeah, because you did some work.
And we've also got to deal with egos. This music industry is full of egos as well. Don't forget it. Okay. You know that. I know that. That's the challenge.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Jason.
No, just agreeing with you. Yeah, that's no shortage of egos in this industry.
It's tiring sometimes. And you know what? When I do things, I do it from a passion. I do it for perseverance. I do it because I love it. Now, what would you recommend to people that want to come into the industry? Is it a worthwhile place to be?
It depends on what you want out of it, I think. An analogy that I use frequently, and this I think applies to myself, hopefully others. Not everybody is looking to make music so that they can have a hit selling record around the world. Some people just want to have fun making music. So the analogy that I use is, I have some friends that play pickup basketball games on the weekend. They just get together with friends and shoot hoops for a couple hours, and then they go home. None of them are trying to break into the NBA. None of them are hoping to be the next Michael Jordan. They just really enjoy playing basketball with their friends. Yeah. I love playing music with my friends. And so if you have the opportunity, if you enjoy getting in a room and getting loud with people and you have the opportunity to do so, then hell yeah, it's absolutely worth it. It's such a fun release just to be able to create art, play music. I'm a drummer. I just love taking out my frustrations in the world, bashing away and such.
I think you're awesome. And do you know what it is as well? It's following your heart, but also you have to find the light at the end of the tunnel. Where is that? How are you, how do you find that perseverance to keep going?
oh, what other option is there? I mean, it's too depressing to just give up, and then what else do you have going on? So I think shifting your
That's it.
expectations a little bit for, when I was younger, I did want to take over the world. I wanted to be the next Nirvana, and I wanted to
I
play
love
on the stage at Saturday Night Live. And then as I, got a mortgage and started a family, these things were less realistic. And so I kind of had to shift, what does success look like to me? And that became playing a certain caliber of shows or a certain number of shows a year, or how many do I care about releasing music? Do I really want to go and spend a bunch of time songwriting and everything? For me, that took a bit of a backseat, and I started filling in with other bands and just telling people, hey, if you need a drummer for a show, I'm around. If your bass player is out on maternity leave and you want me to fill in, then I'm happy to do that. And that's, super satisfying to me, just to be able to, again, get that social connection, hang out and play people's tunes without having to be too hard on myself about my own songwriting or getting, stuck in the trenches of writer's block.
I get that as well. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I'm sorry I've been in a bit
Sure.
of a slump today, a bit of a bad mood. I just think it's, everything that's going on in the world, we need more positivity. Music is
Yeah.
amazing. It's positivity. It does help us. Can you just give us a little bit of advice on how it's helped you?
Oh, sure. I mean, man, that I could spend the rest of the day speaking to. The That sort of like healing power of music, there, I don't know what can be said about it. It's just so true that in times where I'm in just a horrible mood, I have a few go-to songs that I can listen to bring me out of that. Anytime I feel like, oh, nobody in the world possibly understands what I'm going through right now, there's a song about it. There's a song that speaks to that, or something that I can sort of apply to my own situation. And feeling less alone in that, I think, is super helpful. Um, Being able to have a bad day, listen to some music, and then pick up a guitar and start
Oh,
playing along to something, or maybe inspiration hits and you actually start writing something that comes out of that. It's just pure magic.
yes, absolutely that. And Jason, if people want to connect with you, how can they find out more about you, connect, or collaborate with you? How could they do so?
Yeah, I'm around the internet. I'm on, my website is jasensamford.com. On Instagram, I'm there pretty frequently. My username is Barry Bird Nerd. And then I also founded Gatefolded, which I mentioned. So gatefolded.com is another
Leave all the
place
links.
where you can.
Don't worry about that. That's absolutely fine. And thank you so much for taking the time today. So I've been a bit grumpy.
Thank you.
So to all my listeners and to you, been a right old strop today, but it's all good. I'm not perfect and I'm not flawless either. And that's another important point. I don't want people to think that you're in the music industry, you have to be this perfect person. What do you think of that?
Well, I've never met a perfect person. I don't know what that would look like.
Exactly. So thanks everyone, and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.